The year is 2018, and a free-to-play game set in a frigid environment that has 10 players duke it out in a tantalizing combat setting would enter into a public beta. The recipe for your standard battle royale, but the Darwin project was a special game. A revolutionary concept was set apart from the rest. An 11th player gets to be something special. The director. Imagine being the person running the Hunger Games, and that's what it's like to be the director. It's your job to run the game and reward or torment players. The director sets the experience. This creates an incredible gameplay dynamic, and for a game that came out during the Battle Royale craze, it looks like a recipe for success. On top of that, the game was having many large YouTubers playing the game for hundreds of thousands of views. Darwin Project, and by extension Scav Studios, the creator of the game, seem to be set to be on top of the world. A genre-defining game was Darwin's true potential. Did you catch that? I said was. For after about a year or so of success, Darwin fell from grace while waiting for full release. What happened? The Darwin project being developed by a small studio meant content couldn't come out as fast as Battle Royale fans are used to. Darwin had to compete with Fortnite in its prime, another Battle Royale game getting weekly updates while Darwin was relegated to updates months apart. A lot of these updates were also being taken up with just bug fixes, meaning it would be a very long time before new content would be introduced. This led to a lot of frustration in the community and content creators alike, and when people get frustrated, they quit. Also during this time, Darwin tried to put on a big streamer tournament and paid many large streamers to take part in hopes of boosting the game's player base. Almost none of these streamers would stay in the game after the tournament, however. Most of them would move on to a game that was blowing up at the time and was similar enough to Darwin that they already had an advantage and their audience would enjoy watching. Realm Royale. Realm Royale was a very similar game to Darwin in design and gameplay, but was more polished and was the next hot thing on the market. This means Scav had paid all these content creators to play their game and then immediately moved on to a more popular game that was a more polished Darwin. The community, while dying, still lived on and crawled the full release. That was when a few controversial changes were made that still splits the community to this day. But first, let's talk about how the meta of a game affects its player base. If a game is unbalanced or favors an extremely technical style, it will drive away new players. You hear this about Fortnite all the time. Fortnite's even nerfed building their core mechanic because of it. Beta Darwin was extremely technical and had extremely mechanical based input for the meta. This meant established players destroyed any new or inexperienced players trying to learn the game, which would create a stagnant scene in the meta. So what were those controversial changes made at release? Well, they completely removed any special arrow. They removed cloaks and boots from their crafting system, which all had their own benefits for the user and created diverse styles of play. They removed electronics and leather in favor of Darwinium in order to simplify the crafting system that was left in the game. They had 3 class types, which locked you into 2 out of 4 class-specific abilities, which only 2 out of those 4 are ever useful in the meta. They also removed stamina, trying to create a faster gameplay. They briefly removed duos for some reason. No one's quite sure why on that. This left the community that stuck with the game very upset. Most would not accept the new game. The community would go on to demand a revert to the beta days over and over for the end of time. New players, however, loved the new system. Thus, a schism was formed between the quote-unquote old gen and the quote-unquote new gen. Now, in most communities, this isn't an issue, but Darwin is incredibly toxic. The OGs would harass new players, spam Darwin discords, and shout at everyone that the game was dead. But full release did its job. It revived the game for a good while. For about 6 months, Darwin would see more activity than it had seen in over a year. Then just as the game seemed to be recovering, there's an announcement that stopped all the game's momentum. The servers were all about to be shut down in December 2020. This obviously sent shockwaves through the community. It saw the biggest drop in players Darwin had seen in some time. This made a future for the game look very bleak and hopeless. However, there'd be some good news for the Darwin's community for once. The rise of activity on both console versions of the game would move Scav to eventually announce that the NA and EU servers would remain open, and all other servers would be postponed their closing to January 5th. This announcement with a rising competitive scene would breathe new life into the game. Things were looking up for Darwin, but then another tragedy happened. Remember when I said the community was toxic? Yeah, that would come back to bite the competitive scene. The rewards for the Darwin competitive scene usually aren't a cash reward. It's a special skin only given out after a tournament. There were gold, silver, and wood skins, each showed off a different level of skill. With the dwindling player base, silver and gold skins stopped being given out, leaving only the infamous wood. Those who had wood do not like more people earning it. They would usually enter tournaments to stop people being able to earn it and creating a wall of wood. The toxic community that has a prestigious skin that can only be earned through skill is a recipe for disaster. A tournament fed for Darwin, known as Frigid Gaming, was finally given permission by Scav to give out wood skins to tournament winners. At the first tournament, there was immediate accusations of cheating and an attack made towards one of the tournament directors. But after a messy continuation of the tournament, 2 wood skins were given out, one to the technical winner and one to someone who was stream sniped during the game. The competitive community had put one of the final bullets into Darwin, while still breathing. However, there's an update that would put in that very next bullet. Remember when I said the old gen community would constantly demand a revert? Well, April 1st, 2021, Scav would finally listen to them. You can now play the game as it was in beta, but only in customs. This would lead to a small resurgence in the community. They finally got what they begged and pleaded for, but at a cost. The entire hardcore and competitive community was now playing beta customs, leaving public matches barren. Casual players could no longer find matches, and if it did, it would take at least half an hour. This caused them to slowly leave the game, and then the players returning from beta customs eventually found the barren wastelands that were the public lobbies. Slowly but surely, due to empty publics and a slow decline in tournaments, the hardcore community would start shrinking. With a dwindling player base and cash prizes becoming impractical for the Frigid admin team, Frigid Gaming would announce the closure of their Darwin tournaments, leaving just the 1v1 league as a bastion of hope for competitive Darwin. And the 1v1 league would continue strong, but only for about half a season. Then they would suffer the same fate as Darwin as a whole. The continued shrinking of player numbers and the community interaction would lead to the 1v1 league being shut down June 16th, 2021. The revert was a catastrophe for the game. The game's future from this point looks bleak. However, there is some good news. The casual player base has since recovered from the revert, and Darwin is on the rise in Google Trends. There's a possible future for this game. A new age in Darwin is forming, a generation of players who haven't had to deal with the toxic community because that toxic community all left. The player base is now rebuilding itself with new bricks, and I for one hope to see this barren winter landscape, the icy arena of death and competition, be able to rise back to its former glory. As long as the community comes together and doesn't destroy itself once again, Darwin can make a comeback. None of this video is meant to be a jab at Scav. They've done a great job making this game that so many of us have loved at one point or another. The only reason that most of the bad things that Darwin's had to face happened was due to the community's self-destruction and unfortunate timing. The new class system, although flawed, has a longer lifespan in theory than the old system. The community would constantly reject their good faith, and they had no reason to keep the servers open, but they did. They had no purpose in adding back the beta mode, but they did. Scav has set like the benchmark for supporting a game through thick and thin, and even though they aren't focusing on Darwin anymore, I hope for nothing but success for the company. This video has had a more somber tone, but I truly love this game and made this video to show that there's still hope. A hope for this game to reach its former potential. And who knows, if it becomes successful again, Scav might start supporting it. We might see some of those scrapped updates like the ninja class. I'd also like to thank Anxie for letting me interview him and having him look over the script to make sure everything was accurate. And I would like to thank you for watching. If you haven't played Darwin yet, or you've left the game and haven't come back, I implore you to go try the game. The Darwin Survivors Discord might be doing a tournament if they get enough interaction. If they get enough interaction. But with the games, increased community interaction as of recently, it might happen. So go try that out. I'll be live on this game sometime this week. Twitch link in the description if you want to go check that out. But I've been Harpo, and I'll wish all of you a farewell.